Hey guys, this is Miss Carpenter. Just popping by to say how much I miss you. I know this has been a crazy year for 8th grade. It's been a crazy year for my first year of teaching too, but we're going to get through it together, and we're just going to learn about some new ways to learn about math, okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how this is going to work. I'm going to be setting up some virtual lessons, which means I'll be walking through the same kind of lessons we did in class, but just using my iPad instead. So you're going to get to hear me talk just like in class, but you're going to see me teach on the screen using my notes. So we're going to try this out and see how you like it. First off, we're going to start with reviewing scatter plots. I know that we did a lot with that before you guys left, but it's been a while since we've talked about it. So we're just going to review a little bit of that real quick, just to kind of freshen our minds on it. So what a scatter plot is, if you remember, it is just simply a graph that shows a relationship between two sets of data, okay? So it is just used to show a relationship between two sets of data. And then if you recall, there are 3 types of relationships with scatter plots, and you guys are really good at picking out these relationships. So you could have a positive relationship, which means you could have dots that are kind of like this. They look like, remember I said if I shrunk myself down and I put myself at the end of those dots, would I have to climb up to get to the end or climb down? And for that one, I'd have to climb up, so that'd be positive. There's also negative correlation. Remember, we call this correlation or association. And so the dots would look kind of more like this for that, which means I would have to shrink myself down and climb down. And then you've got this crazy kind of association or relationship, which is a no correlation, and it is just dots everywhere. There is no relationship that I can find, so we just call that none, okay? So, the next step here is we're just going to talk about what kind of relationship would be shown by these word problems here. And we're just going to kind of talk about what that would look like on a graph, even though we're not given a graph. So the first one, number 1, says the size of a home versus the size of its lot, okay? So those things do not affect each other, okay? As the size of the home grows, the size of its lot doesn't grow. It's just they don't really have a relationship, so we would just call that none. All right, the next thing is the number of passengers on a plane versus the number of suitcases. Now, think about it. If I was going to get on an airplane, if there are more passengers, they would have to bring a suitcase with them. So the more passengers you have, the more suitcases you would have. Okay, so what we would call that is a positive relationship. If one goes up and the other goes up with it, that's called positive. Now, when they have the opposite kind of relationship, let's talk about number 3, number of days into fall versus the number of leaves on the tree. So you think about that. As we have more days in fall, our leaves are going to fall. We're going to have a less number of leaves. So as one grows, so the number of days in fall grows, the other one decreases, which would be our number of leaves. So we call that a negative relationship. And I hope you guys are kind of starting to remember some of these from class, okay? So now let's talk about drawing scatter plots. And now I know in class that took 10 years to try and draw them, so we're not, of course, I'm not going to make you draw them because you're at home, so you're just going to watch me do it, which is actually kind of nice for right now. So we're just going to talk about how to draw them. And remember, it's just dots on a plot. We're not trying to make a straight line. So this scatter plot here in this first problem is telling me the number of hours a student studied for a test and their grade, okay? So I'm just going to label my graph. So I'm going to put their grade over here, and I'm going to put the hours they studied over here, okay? So the hours are on my x-axis, all right? So I'm just going to label this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, okay? And then up here on the side, I'm actually going to count by tens because notice that my grades are in large numbers. And if I wanted to count by ones, I would definitely run out of room. So I'm going to count by tens. I'm going to say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. And excuse my handwriting, guys. I'm still getting used to this iPad stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and graph our scatter plot. So if you remember from class when we've graphed plots before, we use our X and Y values together. So that means this 3 and this 80 would belong together. So let's go ahead and graph that. So we've got 3 for our hours and our grade was an 80. So go over 3 and up to 80, and that's our point. The next point was 590. So I'm going to go over 5 and up to 90. All right, 245. So this time I'm going to go up to over 2 and between 40 and 50. And now you probably kind of get the gist of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and graph these real quick, and then I'll get back with you to talk about what's going on next, okay? All right, looks like my scatter plot's done. So I've covered all the points, all right? And a way to check myself is I could count those points and count the points on my table to make sure, but for time's sake, I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. So now I need to talk about what kind of relationship that scatter plot have. Well, think about it. Even if you forgot how to interpret a scatter plot, just make sense out of it from real life. The more hours you study, the higher your grades are going to go up, usually, right? So I can go ahead and go off of that and go off my chart, and I can tell that if I shrunk myself down and tried to hop from dot to dot, I would have to hop up, which means that I have a positive relationship, okay? All right, so we do have more examples, but from what I can tell, you guys have been really good at practicing those relationship pieces. So I'm actually just going to upload some pictures, examples of scatter plots and what they are, negative, positive, or no association, and just let you review those because for time's sake, I'm just not going to walk through all of those. Okay, guys? So make sure you look for that. I will have that plainly labeled.